Welcome. Gosh, what, Thursday, December 7th. My, how this year has flown by fast as we approach the end here of 2023. My name is David Waugh with Managed Methods, and you are joining today's student safety webinar on our discussion of how K-12 IT teams can impact mental health and well-being within our organizations out there. I'm going to be going through a couple housekeeping items to help us keep our flow going through today. We'll first start out with just, yes, the webinar is being recorded. As always, if you've attended Managed Methods events in the past, you know we will be recording today's session, and then you will get a copy sent out to you, usually in about 24 hours. It takes a little while for the engine to process everything, but you'll get a copy of the presentation slide deck as well as the recording from today's webinar. And if you have any questions, members of the audience, please submit them in the QA panel through this Zoom platform, and we will address them as best as we can before we wrap up today's session. And again, also all attendees, you are muted. Pardon, I'm going to slide my camera over there a little bit. All of the attendees are muted, so any questions is going to have to be typed in there into the QA in chat. Okay. So our agenda today, of course, we're going to be talking about cyber safety, mental health, well-being, with an emphasis on students first and foremost, because that's what we are here to protect the kiddos in our schools. But know that a lot of what we're going to talk about today is applicable to the well-being for everyone involved in this, staff, adult, faculty, students, etc. Because mental health, cyber safety, it's impacts all of us as human beings together. And as a part of today's discussion, we'll be providing demonstrations of our technology as well, how we play into this conversation. And then, of course, we'll wrap up with a Q&A. I'm going to be introducing these gentlemen momentarily, so I'll come back to this one. But let's just kind of first set the stage as to why is this topic so important? And I think that's, goes without saying, and that's why so many of you are joining us today. It is a very sensitive topic, and it's hard to talk about. Any of you that maybe have seen me present on this topic before, or maybe happen to be this week in Virginia at the VISTI conference in Roanoke. By the way, shout out to all the great folks at VISTI, great conference. Maybe last week when I was presenting at the site conference in California, again, great organization. Shout out to the site folks. This is a very, very challenging, sensitive, hard topic to discuss, but we have to. Right along with all the times that we talk about cybersecurity, data protection, the most valuable commodity in our schools are the kiddos, and it's our staff, and it's our faculty, it's the people, and we have to look out for each other. But the world has gone through tremendous change, and we hear tremendous amounts of stories that are just, either tragic or sad or heartfelt warming because, we've made a difference. And, a lot of things have changed in the last 3-4 years in the digital landscape for everyone across the globe, but especially in the school systems and how things have happened and how, as you see, some of the many bullet points that can happen whenever you're dealing with, the content, the behavior, how people interact with it. Schools are, responsible for all of the digital landscape that's in their environment. And not only just from the ethical and human being, it's the right thing to do, but there's also then laws that require, compliance with these federal and state mandates to help prevent, bullying and discrimination, to help prevent, issues of self-harm, threats of violence and other inappropriate content and actions as they occur across a school district's digital landscape. So, these are just growing concerns. And then unfortunately, the challenges are just getting harder and harder. And cyberbullying and just the nature in which the kiddos are interacting with each other, the statistics have shown just are continually getting worse, and it's a kind of a collision of all things happening. Not only is it about the cybersecurity and data protection aspect of it and protecting individuals' identities and their data and their information. But then the impacts of what some of those things can occur and the interaction with digital technology. You know, I'm an older gentleman, been around the block a little bit. Back in the day when I was in the schools, it was, you know, more of passing notes and not getting caught, you know, and making sure you folded that note the right way so you know it hadn't been opened. You know, maybe then there's, you know, some fisticuffs happening out there in at recess on the playground or in the gym during PE. And now it's just a hidden digital landscape where there's so much more that happens behind the scenes through technology, that this is why we have to continually be looking at these types of things. Part of our mission here at Managed Methods, in our the puzzle, if you would, that we try to help solve for school districts, is we look at all aspects of the digital landscape as it pertains to your email and file sharing areas within Google Workspace and Microsoft 365, Zoom Meeting, Teams, Meet, etc. And cyber safety is a major portion of that puzzle. Cybersecurity and compliance and data protection are other sides of the coin, and they all kind of come together to create this landscape. And so, you know, we're happy to have you folks join us today. We appreciate you taking your time out of your schedule. So let's get into a conversation with someone who's right there, one of your peers, someone in the trenches with you that's been dealing with this for quite a long time. With me from my team is Mr. Charles Mogan, Senior Product Specialist. Charles is going to be interacting and providing live demonstration of our technology and how it applies to some of these subjects. And the man of the hour here is our guest, Mr. Brian Meeks. Brian, I'm going to let you now take the microphone, introduce yourself, and, you know, tell the folks a little bit about your organization and your role there.
Awesome. Thank you, David. As David said, my name is Brian Meeks. I am the Senior Systems Administrator for Paideia School. I have been with Paideia for 24 years now in the IT field. Paideia is located in Atlanta, Georgia. We're about 3 miles from Emory University. We are located in Midtown Atlanta. We have an enrollment of 1,000 K-12 and a faculty and staff of 250. And we are a Apple school. We have a one-to-one iPad program. We are also a Google domain workspace. Most of our kids, starting in the 3rd grade, receive an email address. In the 6th grade, they received access to the outside world with those email addresses. Myself, I'm like David, I'm part of the old crowd, you know, passing notes just to cuff outside. And this type of new landscape is changing dramatically. As a father of 2, my son is 22, my daughter is 17. I've seen the change within them and how they use technology. I've also seen the difference in how my students use technology. For those of you who are Managed Methods customers in this webinar, and those of you who are visiting, I think those of you who are visiting will learn today that how important it is to have something like Managed Methods in your toolbox to help with the cybersecurity issues you may have within your domain. We became Managed Methods partners about 2 years ago during the pandemic. It was a cold call that my director decided to answer. And after talking with him, she called me directly and she said, "You have got to talk to this company. This is incredible." And we haven't looked back since. I believe she and I often talk that Managed Methods is quite possibly one of the best decisions we have made in the last few years as far as our cybersecurity stance. We use Managed Methods as part of my daily routine. I get email notifications daily about student actions against in their email and their Google Drive that I have to go in and check on daily. I have to follow up on daily. But managed methods has been such an invaluable tool to our department that I don't know how I worked before. Most of the times what would happen is when we went into a Google, we moved from an in-house email system to a Google domain. We knew that there was something we needed to be able to manage this domain and our users. The only method I had at the time was to go in to the account, break it, and look for what I needed. Managed methods took away all that. They brought in the ability to look in accounts. They brought in the ability to get notifications. They brought me the ability to know where my users are logging in from if there's a questionable login. They brought me the ability to look for illicit language, illicit photos, illicit actions. So I'm glad that we're here today to talk about this, because it is so hard, and you really don't know exactly what's happening within your Google domain unless you have something like managed methods in your toolbox to help you out.
So Brian, first off, thank you. That extremely kind words. We appreciate it, and we're so glad to be a part of it and be able to help you. And you shared, with our team different stories, and I know there's some things that we're not at liberty to discuss today because of the sensitivity of the nature. But for district technology teams out there, other school technology leaders like yourself, talk to us a little bit about how the student safety landscape has changed over the last few years, and what are some of the different things you folks do. But you have managed methods obviously as a core, but walk us through like all the different areas of the landscape that you have to address when it comes to these types of concerns.
So within our school, we have a number of security parameters in place. Not only do we have managed methods watching our Google domain, but we also have other products watching our internet. We're filtering the internet for students. I have all the logs that tell me where students are going, what they're looking for. What we noticed is the age that students are starting to receive technology. Granted, for us, we do have iPads in the kindergarten and lower elementary rooms. They're not taking them home, but they are using them. What we noticed is that when students started taking these devices home, they were working with their parents and parents were working with them, but sometimes there was a gap. And there would be chat interventions between students, mostly emails. And sometimes these emails got to be a little, inappropriate. So we brought in managed methods, and I remember talking with Charles when we first set it up, and he said, "Okay, we're going to do a tertiary scan of your entire domain." And when we did, these things came back. I was blown away. I had no clue that this has, was starting to happen. Kids are using their Google domain emails like a personal email. They don't have one at home. We give them one where they can talk between students, and that's what was happening. So we knew that we had to, one, tighten up our training a little bit with the students on how to use email properly. We knew that we needed to provide teachers with tools that would reinforce those things that we taught, but we also needed a way to monitor what was happening within the domain, to notify teachers and administration of what students were doing, what students were saying. I can give you one example that happened yesterday. We had a case of bullying where a student was stealing iPads and writing emails under someone else's name. and sending that email out to other students. Managed Methods picked it up immediately. I took the emails, sent it to the administration. Within an hour, those students were sitting in the office of the principal and the assistant principal discussing the ramifications of doing this. What's funny is, and I was telling David and Charles this, that the last sentence on one of the emails was, "You guys need to quit. You know, Brian can see everything." So our students know
They're
that
learning,
we're watching, which is good. Which is good. I want them to know that I'm watching. But Managed Methods, you know, so many times you think about, well, what if this and what if that? I have been shocked at what this software can do as far as being able to read a PDF, being able to read text in a photo in a JPEG format, being able to decipher between a photograph, you know, a piece of art and a piece of nudity. So we have really, I can't say enough how much it's helped in this changing landscape, as David said, of what students are doing now with technology today and trying to, you know, hide from parents.
You know, and that, Brian, let's start maybe with that example, and I'll bring Charles now in, and we'll kind of go back and forth. So let's start with that example of the email, and how we can, you know, and Charles, if you want to share your screen, and we can walk through, you know, how we detect, in that case, that example, how we detected something in an email, and then we could identify which students it was, or staff, or whomever. And then as we do that, Brian, I'll ask you to, you know, provide some commentary. But, you know, when we look at you know, the safety signals, where are they appearing most often? Are you finding, Brian, that, you know, and you just alluded to this, is email more of the driver, or is it things that they're storing and sharing in Drive? Or is it stuff that they're surfing the web, or is it kind of they all kind of come all together?
It's kind of where they all kind of come together. Emails, Drive, and especially where I'm seeing a lot of this action is the ages of 12 to 14. Kind of that 12 to 14 is a very unique time in a person's life. They are learning the ins and outs of this overflow of hormones that are coming through their body and what to do with those emotions that are hitting them so hard. They become very fragile, I think is a good word, that the emotions that they experience between they want to be on social media with their friends and the likes and the posting of videos and the reaction of friends sending that like to them and getting a whole bunch of likes to get the endorphin rush of being popular. And then what happens if you post the wrong video and you all of a sudden get the thumbs down and you're being ousted as a person? It's all these things are combining together that make these kids, you know, they're moving in so many different directions. Emails coming across that may say, "Hey, we didn't like what you posted. You know, you're an idiot. You're stupid. You should go over here and die." And then you may turn around and see a student who basically may write a, you know, puts these feelings out on paper, stored in their Google Drive, and it may be a suicide note or a suicide poem or something like that. That really needs to be addressed, and see if you can help that student find the help they need.
You're pulling at my heartstrings right now, because, you know, we're you know, I mean, I've got the 13-year-old daughter at home right now in 7th grade.
I mean,
I just wish I could fast forward her out of that world, because it is rough. Oh,
my daughter, I would rather go backwards to when she was 5 or 6. We can go back to Disney and have fun again.
Yeah,
Um,
that's that's probably the better one. Well, so Charles, you shared up on the screen here. Walk us through what Brian kind of talked about and share with the audience how, in that case, he just shared that cyberbullying incident where inappropriate language, content, cyberbullying was happening via email. And first talk us through how we detected that and then how that works.
Yeah, we've got a number of different risk scans that are set up in the platform to look for different kinds of things. The one looking for inappropriate language, violent language, things of that nature there, and this is the one that would have most likely picked it up here, is our toxicity risk machine learning model. We also do have a number of other optional risk scans that could be set up that can be tailored for looking for other kinds of inappropriate language as well too. But this is our primary one we use here. We also do have a couple of different ones here for self-harm. We also have a machine learning model there, as well as one that's more of a phrase-based model. So when something gets flagged, you're able to click into it directly here. And then you're able to get an idea of what was going on with it. Now, this is actually a document here, but I do have some examples of what email would look like up in our self-harm machine learning model risk scan. I'll go ahead and use those since this is an email and you'll get an idea of what this looks like. So sometimes things can get flagged by multiple risk scans. So if this was a situation where there was some kind of bullying or something like that, generally speaking, you'd get an information like this where it's going to say, hey, it's a self-harm risk, or it's in that case, a toxicity risk machine learning model. There's going to be a risk level and a risk score associated with it. And then there's a way to go ahead, and this is a newer feature that we've just introduced, to preview that email right from the console here to see what it looks like. So without having to directly download it or take a look at it that way, really easy way to see what's going on with it here directly, see the information that way. And then of course there are ways to pull down the whole message thread if necessary too. So sometimes there's very long email threads where two students might be communicating back and forth, or in that case, where it's this kind of thread as well too. So you can pull down the message body from over here or over here as well too. And also importantly here on the left-hand side, there's details on what was going on with the email. So who sent the email? When did that sending occur? Who were the intended recipients? Was there a subject line of the email? What was that? It'll also look at attachments as well too. The platform doesn't just scan the message bodies. As Brian mentioned, it's going to be looking into things like PDFs, into image files, into any of those different areas there. So it's very broad in its risk scanning. And then just some basic information on the domain. Hey, when did this get picked up on by the platform? And this is a newer feature as well. We also now have an item ID too. So if you need to do a deeper dive search for it elsewhere, there's some ways to go ahead and do that as well too.
All right. Well, thanks, Charles. Brian, look familiar to you?
Looks a lot familiar.
So Brian, maybe share with the audience, some of the important benefits of having any monitoring and visibility technology in place, because obviously we're a big part of your environment looking at your Google Workspace. But just maybe share with the audience some of your day-to-day, like, hey, what are some of the things that you are looking for, whether it be with managed methods, whether it be through other tools you use, and how then you're disseminating this information and passing it along to others in your school.
So I take the stance that when it comes to cybersecurity, there is no silver bullet. As IT professionals, we have to build a toolbox of tools that we can use that monitor and help maybe your district, maybe your school. As far as me, I have managed methods in my toolbox. We also employ Fortinet as one of our other security tools. The combination of these tools to bring together the ability to look at what is happening on a day-to-day with my users, whether it be accessing blocked websites. Why did this website come up? Where did they access it? How do they access it? With managed methods, you sit there and you have this incredible window pane in front of you of your domain, whether it be Microsoft, whether it be Google. And you can have this information at your fingertips that will help you just find the answers to a problem very quickly with, like, the don't tell mom email. Did that answer the question appropriately?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a combination of many technologies. One of the things that I know you and I have talked about a little bit offline, and is a big component of not only cybersecurity, but even cyber safety and keeping kind of inappropriate stuff out, is the explosive adoption of third-party apps in
Correct.
the
Yeah.
landscape. And
one of the things that we do with Managed Methods is we monitor third-party apps utilization. You give a student an email address, then they probably don't have another email address, depending on their age. Now, let's go back to the 12 and 14-year-olds. Let's really hone in on boys. They have this new email address, and wherever they go, they see that log in with Google. So, or they log in with Microsoft. We can monitor what apps they are logging into using their Google email, whether it be a game, whether it be a website, something like that. Managed Methods will actually go in, break that OU, and send us a report back saying student X, Y, and Z logged into the following apps. We can look and say, okay, well, that app's appropriate, so we can flag it as appropriate and use it as education. Then we can also have a notification that comes in that says student X, Y, and Z also logged into OnlyFans. Well, we need to go have a talk about what's going on. So Managed Methods has really cut down on the amount of those types of logins I see recently. In fact, I went in this morning to check to see if anything at risk had come through on the outside. Zero. So usually it only takes a couple of times for somebody to be caught before word really gets around. And they're like, no, Brian's going to see it. Don't do it.
so, as you see on the screen here, as Charles is walking the audience through, Charles, describe a little bit what's happening here.
Yeah, so this is where the platform pulls through the OAuth token activity. So when a user signs into something with their district issued account, that's something that we pull up within the platform here. Now, one of the big changes Google, of course, made was that change with the approved apps for students that are considered under the age of 18. But with that being said, we have seen a lot of applications that have lingered around or kind of predate that change. And there are certainly some really concerning ones out there. One of the categories I especially see a problem with, of course, explicit applications like Brian was mentioning with OnlyFans and things are extremely concerning. But social media applications are a huge problem. We'll see a lot of issues with students signing into things like TikTok. There's a particularly bad one out there called Wiz. It's one of those applications where they brand themselves as making friends and things like that, but really what it is more like a dating application, and it's a 13+ application, so pretty young kids can get into it pretty easily there. And that's an application that's based over in France. They don't really follow US laws, and it's one where there's been a lot of exploitation and extortion going on through the application, because unfortunately with those kinds of applications you can get adults that will use those applications too. Unfortunately, we like to think that we live in a good world there and things are good, but sometimes there's bad actors out there. So looking for those kinds of things and at least preventing the students from using their district account or their school account, it can be huge in trying to prevent some of those things and keeping students away from some of those really risky things that they can get involved into really easily there.
One of the things that we use Managed Methods for a good bit is, Charles, if you want to go to malware.
Yeah, absolutely.
People will report malware or a spam email. Managed Methods gives me the ability to find all the emails that went out as a spam or a malware or something like that, and gives me the ability to find them and get rid of them, even before the user knows they're there.
Absolutely.
I've used this more than once, and somebody will report, hey, I got this email. I take a look, I'm like, holy crap, that went to like 45 people. Find the email, find all the users, get it out of the mailbox before they see it. That has been very helpful as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, the live email search is a great tool for that. Certainly if there are things that are flagged as malware. And this can also be used for the student safety aspect too. It doesn't have to just be for spam or phishing. We've seen this used quite effectively too. If there's a situation where principal comes to you and says, hey, I need you to go find the emails that this particular student sent. Can you see what this student was sending back and forth between these two users there? So there's easy ways to do that where we can search in individual students' mailboxes. This search can go back very far. There's not really an effective time limit on it either, just as long as the email exists in the domain here. So for example, if I was concerned that, hey, what's going on with this particular student here, I could go ahead and run a quick search, and then I'm able to see the different emails that have been shared back and forth. What sorts of things have they been receiving email wise, and then you can go ahead and pull these down. This is a new feature as well, but you're now able to pull emails down as EML, so that will ensure it captures things like attachments that could be in the email. But there's the ability to just come in and preview those emails as well too, or download them as PDFs. So very easy for you to take a look at what's going on with the email. What did that look like to the end user when they received it there? And then of course, importantly too, if there's stuff that doesn't need to be in there, very easy to come in here and delete those emails as you need to as well. So great for investigation for multiple different things. Of course, on the more concerning side with the cybersecurity aspect, but also on that more student safety side of things as well too.
Right. We also use managed methods to monitor our user logins. Many times where emails may be coming from a strange place. China is one. We kind of look at where logins are coming from, where they're logging into. I haven't on occasions emailed someone and said, hey, I just got a really odd login from this island in the South Pacific. I just want to check on it. And that would come back, oh yeah, I'm on vacation here. I'm like, well, you lucky dog. Managed methods helps with knowing where these emails are coming from, and if possibly an email has been compromised. And if I think it has been compromised, I can quickly take care of the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. The login analyzer and looking at login activity is a part of that as well too. One of the things that I was noticing over the summer when I was working with a lot of the school district customers was that when we were seeing compromised student accounts, we were seeing those bad actors when they were compromising those student accounts. They were doing kind of one of two things. One of the things they were doing was they were sending out a lot of inappropriate emails as the student to, in many cases, all over the world, where they were trying to send out those kinds of phishing emails and things of that nature. So a lot of times those were getting detected by the risk scan because they were of an inappropriate nature, something the student wouldn't be doing. So that was a tip off that there's something wrong with this student. In another case, I actually saw where an account was compromised and then that bad actor was trying to extort the student for money to get their account back.
Yep.
Probably not the best decision on that bad actor's part, because of course, district IT admins can of course change the student's password and get control back of the account there. But still really, really important to be aware of those kinds of events and ensure that, is this actually the student that's doing this, or is there something else potentially going on here where maybe somebody else that's not the student's actually involved in what's going on with the information there.
Right.
So definitely the login activity is great to be able to examine and see what's going on, and also very easy, of course, as you mentioned there, Brian, to take action to suspend accounts or change passwords if you need to as well.
Yep.
Now, in some of the areas too, as we've talked about, a lot of these recent data breaches and attacks that have been out there in the environment from a cybersecurity aspect with like Singularity MD, they're using compromised student accounts, which then also in some areas they've already uncovered the threats and harassment then against students and parents and other people, where it creates a whole nother landscape of social emotional cyberbullying threats. Because when a student account may be compromised, as you gave an example in your district with the cyberbullying, somebody else was stealing people's iPads and acting as if they were on their behalf, sending out other things. but then also that impact of all of a sudden somebody's contacting you, telling you that they have access to your kiddo's information. It's not just about the theft and the data protection, it's then the social emotional impact it has on that family and that individual. And so monitoring the emails and the apps, it is crucial. You know, Brian, we talked about some other stuff. What are some of the the roles these different technologies play? If you didn't have them in place, what were you doing before? How did you see these things and address these things before? And now, as you've started to build a landscape, what are some best practices you might suggest to people?
I spent a lot of time spinning my wheels. A lot of time having to go into Google accounts, change the password, retrieving what information I needed from that, and then going back to the person and saying, look, we had this issue. I had to change your password. Here's your new password. Log in and change it again. Managed Methods has really put that domain, like I said, into a single pane of where I can monitor everything from above. And if I need to dart in and take care of an issue, I can. Before it was cumbersome. I was really, when we were moving toward the Google domain, about, I think it was about 8 years ago, 10 years ago that we did this. I was worried about how will I be able to manage and deal with issues that will come up. I'm in a school. Issues are going to come up with students. I mean, it's a given. And once we had, I saw Managed Methods, and it was, like I said, it was a no-brainer to bring this into our toolbox arsenal.
So one of the things that that we've talked about is there's multiple threat surfaces or landscapes that we have to look at. So you've shared with us everything from the things that kids are searching for on the web to then how they perhaps download something, they talk about it maybe then in a journal or a diary in a Google Doc, or it appears in an email. So Charles, why don't you show with the audience here, let's talk about how we can go all the way to the browser and bring it all the way back into look at the Google Drive, or all the way over to the account.
Sure, absolutely. Yes, we have a newer product here, which is our content filter. And one of the aspects of our content filter is, again, trying to look more at that web traffic, of course. And we have that risk section here, much like what you've seen over here in the Cloud Monitor platform, as we call it. And we've got the similar kinds of risk scans here, where the platform is going to go out and look for things like self-harm, things like the toxicity risk scan, which is looking for that inappropriate or violent language there. And then additional risk scans can be implemented as needed there. So certainly going beyond these a couple out of the box options there as well too, and certainly can draw from the Cloud Monitor aspect. And then if there is an issue, there's records of this in the violations section, where there's an ability to look for different things where there's different inputs being put in. So what the content monitor, or the content filter, excuse me, is looking for is when somebody goes to say a Google chat and they input something, or they go to google.com or go.go.com or anything, and they input something, that's what the content filter here will see. So if there is something that's been flagged, the platform will go ahead and pull it up. You're able to then see who that user is, see what's going on with that, and then you'd be able to cross-reference that with the main Managed Methods cloud platform here, looking at the account side of things on Google. So that's looking at the web traffic, what the students are doing within the web browser there. And this here on the risk side is looking at things within the account level. So even if somebody is using something, maybe a device that isn't being monitored directly, maybe they're on their phone or something like that, and they're sending emails or they're creating documents where those aren't traditionally captured with most content filters, we would still see that information appear in here as well too. So it's trying to get a more holistic approach there on that risk side of things there, with both with self-harm or with toxicity or those kinds of different risk scans there.
So is you're seeing there, you've gone from the browser of what somebody might be searching for or typing into a Google chat or a Google search form, and then we can take them from the browser to the Google Drive or the Microsoft OneDrive or the Gmail, end to end. And this is why we went, to the links to add a content filter to the browser. Somebody asked us, why are you entering that market? There's so many companies already out there, but no one is doing this. They're not there inside of the Drive looking at it, and we felt we needed to bring those two worlds together. Thanks for sharing that, Charles, and Brian, on that. So let's shift gears a little bit here as we approach now the final quarter part of the hour here. Some questions starting to pop in now, and this is a question asking about, Brian, if you could maybe talk about it. How are you guys coping or addressing the youth mental health issues? And the individual here pointed out they see in the demo, and I might let the individual know that asked this anonymously. This is our demo environment you're looking at. This is not Brian's environment. This is our demonstration environment. So the reason you see so many risks out there on self-harm is it's in our demo environment. So that's what that is. So Brian, I'll start with you first, and then Charles, you can kind of address it. The question is asking, it's kind of a broad question. How are you and how can this platform help schools cope with youth mental health issues? So how do you folks use our platform to kind of help early detection and maybe prevention?
Many times what you find through managed methods, it turns into a learning opportunity. You can take this information that managed methods gives you and go back to the student and help them understand why it's not appropriate to say these things, or not appropriate to have these files in your Drive. Or in the case like we talked about earlier about writings that invoke self-harm, go back to that student and say, hey, we found this letter in your Google Drive, and we really want to know, do you need some help? Do we need to get with the parents, find out what's going on? So that's kind of how we leverage it, or how it should be leveraged. It's a learning opportunity. It's an opportunity that opens up a otherwise closed world that you may never see. When you have these type of environments, these virtual environments, like the Google domain, like a Microsoft domain, it's not a set it and forget it. There are things happening in there that you don't know about, that you need to know about. And managed methods is a top-notch #1 tool to really bring this in and open that, how would you say, crack that nut open and get to the meat part and find out what's going on and how you need to address these issues that are happening within your district or school.
And I think it's important to share too, in your case with your school, you can directly take things and get it directly to the appropriate individuals. And I presented at a conference earlier in the week in Virginia where another one of our clients, which is a district of about 10,000 kiddos with many, many, many facilities and schools, talked about how our product can distribute. So for our audience, and that person that asked that question, the platform will help you distribute and get the information, alerts, and notifications in the right people's hands quickly. So it's not just being dumped into the lap of the IT department or the system administrator or the IT director, because I'm sure we have folks on this call, and I know for a fact, as I see, we have some small schools represented, like your small school, Brian, but I also see there's some schools on here that are fairly large districts. And as you talked about before, Brian, you were a little bit you didn't have this visibility, but you were also maybe overwhelmed by how much you had to sift through. Out of the box, it may be overwhelming, right? But
yeah, I mean, Charles and I do talk about this at least once a quarter. We kind of go through, do an audit of our system, and Charles is like, you got a lot of noise going on. I'm like, no, I'd rather have the noise and pick out the good part, what I need. I'd rather have too much information than not enough. And I can always pull that information out and get it into the hands of the principal of who needs it. So, I've never really, when you think about a large district, you're going to get a lot of noise. And Managed Methods and their team, your team, is really good about helping kind of taking that static and saying, we're not going to worry about this, we're not going to worry about that, and kind of fine tune and granulate the notices you get with Managed Methods instead of having all of it come at you at one time.
So as we, I'm going to encourage the audience, if there's more questions, we still have about 5-10 minutes or so we can go here. As we're here with the Product Open, Brian, just obviously we appreciate, folks joining us today to learn about this overall topic and what we do in this portion of the topic. But is there any recommendations you might have to other people out here, maybe people in the audience right now, or people that will hear this recording down the road, for implementing a technology or technologies to help get out in front of this, to see potential risks, to see social emotional wellness aspects, and any kind of recommendations you would give people?
One thing that I'm really starting to work on here is our cybersecurity posture. Recently, I was talking with a colleague of mine and found out that on the dark web, a student's personal information sells for about $250 to $500. The younger the person's information is, the more coveted it is, because of there's no credit attached to it. This is why schools are now becoming the #1 target of threat actors like Singularity MD. David sent some articles to me yesterday that I read through, and the one I read through about Clark County and Las Vegas, where, or was it the school district near you, where students were required to use their birthday as a password. Well, I understand why an IT department would do that in such a large domain like Microsoft or Google with that many students. If they needed to get into the account and see something, they have a name. All they need to do is go to the SIS, pull up the birth date, and they're in. Security-wise, that's not very smart. You got to have something like this in your toolbox that allows you to do a 10,000-foot flyover to see the information that's flowing through that domain. And then if you need to dive in and take care of something, it's right here at your fingertips. It's not, giving everybody basically the same password is what it boils down to.
Well, and what you're referring to is, yes, I mean, it's cybersecurity and the cyber safety and the wellness weave together, because if hackers, bad threat actors are coming in to try and compromise and take data from a school, that creates a very serious social emotional cyber threat to those families and individuals as well. Not just the impact of their data being stolen, but the emotional impact of being violated of their privacy. And that, on that note, a question has come in from the audience about this. And has parents or any others expressed concerns about surveillance and privacy? And if so, how have you handled that?
So, here's how I'm going to address that. And yes, we have had concerns. To let you know, first off, we do parent meetings at least once a year with every grade level, talking with parents about what technology, and I'm on that panelist as well with our parents, to what we do internally to protect their students and what they can do as a family to protect their family, suggesting web filters, devices, and things of that nature. Now, privacy concerns about email. Email, as far as with us, okay, Paideia owns the email. This is paideiaschool.org. You have an email that belongs to the school. When you leave the school, the email does not leave with you. You retire from the school. You graduate. You transfer schools. You quit and go to another school to work. This email does not follow you. It belongs to the school. So privacy-wise, I'm not saying that we have a right, but I have a duty to monitor what's going on inside my domain, to look at any problems that happen within the domain. Now, that being said, we are very restrictive at who can read this information. Me. And if I happen to have an image threat pop up on my notices that I have to look at, I bring another person into the room to look at it with. That goes back to my Boy Scout, my Boy Scout leadership with 2D leadership. So that's kind of where we deal with when parents ask about privacy. We are in the process now of really tightening our policy on privacy, as far as trying to keep that data we have in-house secure. But as far as like seeing day-to-day stuff, like the kid said, I see everything, and you really have to filter what's going on with, what do you submit and what do you ignore.
It is a slippery slope.
It is. It really is.
And obviously your position can be maybe different from others because you're a private school versus a public school. There is also differences between states here in our country. And then if there's anyone in here from a different country, there's different rules. So to the audience, what we suggest, and to that question, because it gets asked of me all the time, almost any time I've presented at a conference, I get asked that similar question. And it boils down to, first and foremost, your individual school or school district's policies set either by your Board of Regents, school board. Then it goes to, your community, the state you live in, different policies and procedures. As I mentioned, I was in California last week for their state conference. Just even in a large state like California, it varies greatly from one part of the state to the other part, urban versus rural, etc. So the advice we always give everyone is, first and foremost, you must start first with your leadership of your district, your technology leadership, your executives, your superintendents, cabinet, the school board, your school's legal counsel, if you have legal counsel in-house, or if you have other, you must start first there to determine what is it that is our policies, what is acceptable, what is not. Then you have to look at your state laws, and then you have to look at the federal laws, because they do vary from state to state. Obviously, the very highest level of governance, the federal laws take precedent, and then the state laws come second, and then your district policy and procedures, is so long as they don't conflict or violate the state or federal laws, then you can adjust as needed. But always, as a technology leader, we always recommend you start there.
One of the things I'll stop and I'll leave with this. One of the things that I really tell people when they're in this role of watching this information comes from Peter Parker's uncle. With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah. Spider-Man reference, folks. Come on.
Yep.
Gotta know it. Well, and I think that we have to, as you said, we have to do these things, and we have to try, and we have to be do the best we can. And we hope that today's session benefited folks to not only learn more about who we are and what we can help with, but we also offer up the ability to try this out for free, so that you can see what Brian's talking about and get a complimentary risk audit. Charles, if you want to just quickly bring up managemethods.com for our audience, I'll leave with this, and then I'll ask Brian you to give just some parting words. You know, for the audience, take advantage of our complimentary safety and cybersecurity risk environment. You can try out our flagship cloud monitor product that Brian has been using for a number of years, and we demonstrated today. You can try out our content filter product, and it's a free audit of your environment where we will help you see what types of risks may be in your environment, from a potential self-harm, cyberbullying, student safety, inappropriate content, all the way to third-party apps, to potential compromised accounts and threats to the outside. And in some cases, maybe just general greater visibility and control of what's happening in your environment. As well as then our content filter product, which can look at what is happening from the browser layer of a Google Chrome browser, a Microsoft Edge browser, and what are the students or staff members, you know, searching for out there, and where are we potentially missing things in this environment. And all of these solutions can be complementary to other layers of your technology stack. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, Charles, as always, thank you for you know, running the show here. Brian, any departing words just in general over this topic that you would like to share with our audience today?
I think mostly it's just what I've learned in my number of years in technology is don't work harder, work smarter. Build a good toolbox of tools that help you with your job, and always investigate your tools and make sure that it does what you want it to do and does it for a good price.
Well, Brian, we appreciate you being a partner with Managed Methods. We appreciate you taking this valuable time out of your day. To our audience, same. We appreciate you taking time out of your day as we approach the holiday seasons and the potential break everybody gets. We wish everyone a happy holiday season and a happy new year. And we look forward to working with you folks in 2024. Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Audience members, you're welcome to go to managemethods.com to learn more about what we do. And we appreciate everyone's time today. The recording of this webinar and the copy of the presentation will be sent out within the next 24 to 48 hours or so. So with that said, Charles, my friend, thank you. Brian,
Thank you.
A pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Yep.
Everyone else, have a great day.